everybody, welcome back to Mike's World. Today we're going to be taking a look at some budget-friendly cameras for use for news or journalism. But before we get started, please subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed, like the video, and also leave a comment and ask any questions in the comment section. I'll try to answer as many as I can. Okay, so let's talk about journalism for a moment. Let's talk about newsrooms. I have over 20 years experience working in television news as a photojournalist. And one of the things that we've noticed is the trend of, at least over the last 20 years, TV viewership is going down, particularly for local news. Newspapers have almost nearly shuttered their doors. Local papers are down to maybe just 2 or 3 people total working. And journalism in and of itself is, it's kind of like a dying industry. There's not a lot of people practicing it, especially in local communities. And because of that, the ones that are left, there's just not a lot of money to be spent on equipment and things like that and resources for newsrooms. So it's really important in this day and age that people have a budget-friendly option if they're practicing journalism or working in news. This goes for the independent freelance journalist or small newsrooms in local communities. So today I want to take a look at a couple of options that are really budget-friendly for journalists. Rather, you're an independent journalist and you practice journalism on your own through social media in your local communities, or you work at a small newspaper, or you work at a very small TV station that has news. So I just want to throw these options out, and I want to show you why I'm going to show you these cameras that I've picked out and why I think they're a great fit for local journalism. So the very first one I'm going to point out right now is this is the Canon HF-G70. This is the cheapest, would be considered a professional level camera that's available. You might want to call it a prosumer camera. It's about $1,000 and you can pick it up on Amazon, B&H Photo Video, anywhere like that. There is a link in the description. Everything I'm going to talk about and show you, there's a link in the description in case you want to pick one of these up. Camera itself runs about $1,000. There is a Canon XA60, which is essentially this exact same camera, except the XA60 has a handle with XLR inputs for professional microphones. Now, I've picked up the G70, and what I did was I bought this XLR adapter. It's made by VidPro, and I believe the number on it is XM-AD2, and it has audio controls to be able to control the audio, has professional XLR inputs, and it connects to the camera's 3.5 millimeter audio input. So this camera has that. That's essentially like the plug on your headphones. It's the same thing. So, and this works with any camera that has that microphone input. So this thing runs about, I don't know, 40 bucks or so, between 40 and $70, depending on where you pick it up. As opposed to the Canon XA60, where the handle, all you're essentially doing is getting the handle, but that camera is almost $600-700 more than this camera, and it's the same camera. So this camera has a 1/2.3 inch image sensor. Now that is a small sensor. However, it's a backlit CMOS sensor. So in low light conditions, at crime scenes, things like that, it's backlit. Yes, you're going to have some grain. But it's acceptable, I believe, for local news, journalism, and for online if you're going to compress. But in daylight, this thing is phenomenal. And so back in the day when I first started in a newsroom, you had the big shoulder rig cameras, they're $35,000, $35,000 a piece. And then, this you can pick up for just the camera, $1,000. You got about, let's say, $70 in the adapter. And you'll see I have a small top light. At night, this is more than enough light than what you need. You might want a bigger one if you're going to need a light for daytime use. I have a Sennheiser MKE 600 shotgun mic. These things are phenomenal. Now, this is a pricey shotgun mic, but it's absolutely imperative that you get a good microphone to get good sound. On the flip side of this, what you'll see is I have a little adapter. This is a little cold shoe adapter. It's about 10 bucks. Turns this single cold shoe on the camera into 3 cold shoes. And then right here is a Ceramonic. This is a wireless receiver. So, and I actually have 2 lav mics that go to this. Lav mic kit, 200 bucks for this. You can pick up some cheaper ones, but this can connect either to the XLR or the auxiliary input jack on the adapter. It works and sounds great. And by having a dual wireless, if I wanted to stand and interview somebody, I can do that, put a mic on them, put a mic on me, you know, and it works really well. Shotgun mic, it just pops off and I can do an interview. Hey, what do you have to say? You know, what's your name? Say and spell your name. If I was doing an interview, it's the first thing you ask. Can you please say and spell your name? Taking this off and using it as a stick mic if you're shooting by yourself, phenomenal, just pops on and off. Now, one thing to keep in mind, this XLR adapter does not provide phantom power. So any microphone that goes into this adapter has to be powered. That is one little small change from the XA60. XA60, you can have phantom power. This one, the microphone has to have power to it for this to work. But this whole setup here, you know, you're looking at, with the microphone, $1,600 maybe, and then you got to add a tripod. I have a Benro S4 that I use with this camera, and it's only because I already had it, but I would suggest you stepping up to a Benro V4. It's going to be a little sturdier, a little easier to work faster. And so overall, I think that's a great setup. You're talking less than $2,000 for everything you need to cover journalism locally, as opposed to, you know, sometimes the camera I'm shooting with right now is a Sony NX5. I've had it for like 15 years and it shoots 1080. It has been my news camera, everything camera, 15 years old, still going strong, but it only shoots 1080 and it shoots AVC HD. This camera will shoot 4K if you need it. I don't think online you really need it. I think 1080 is more than enough. But the difference, big difference between that camera and this camera shoots MP4 format as opposed to the Sony that shoots AVC HD. Why does that matter? It matters a lot because MP4 is the preferred format online. It works with Facebook, it works with YouTube, it works with X, it works with just about anything. You want to upload video anywhere, and they're almost always going to ask you for MP4 format. And why that's important also is your phone. So with the G70, you can pop the SD card directly out of the camera, put it in a card reader, pop it in, whether it's an iPhone or an Android, and you can copy your footage onto your phone immediately into the camera roll and use it for some app-based editors such as Adobe Rush, which is what I use. Adobe Rush, you put it in there, I can edit sound bites, I can upload something immediately. From the time I finish shooting to the time it's online is less than 5 minutes. Phenomenal, and I don't have to carry around a big laptop. So that's the thing. However, with iPhone, you can only use MP4. Now, the Android phones, you can upload AVC HD, you can do some other formats. However, Adobe Rush won't work with those formats. You can download apps like Power Director that will work, but it's not quite as user-friendly. So I prefer to stick in with the MP4 format, and the Canon line of cameras all shoot MP4, which is why I suggest going with Canon if you're doing local news and you are doing a lot of stuff online or digital. And if you're working in news, you're working on digital. You're working on digital a lot. These cameras are fantastic. Now, you're talking about $2,000, right? Tripod, everything. And that's really cheap compared to what we used to spend on cameras and stuff. If that's a little bit above your price point, maybe you want to cut that down a little bit. Well, here's a camera that I've used up until getting the G70. I use this a lot. And we're talking, I mean, I have the Sony, and when I work in newsrooms, I have access to much more expensive cameras. But this will work just as well too. This is the Canon Vixia R80. Now, they don't make these anymore. You can still pick these up refurbished on Amazon. You can still find these on Facebook Marketplace. It's a small camera. They run today about $400 if you can find one. I've added the lens hood separate. It was 20 bucks or so, link in the description. And I added this T-handle that adds 3 cold shoes because all that extra stuff on the G70 I showed you came right off of this. The shotgun mic, the wireless, all that works with this too, because inside the flip out is a 3.5 millimeter microphone input. That is the key to any camera you choose shooting for local, is you got to have that microphone input so that you can have some way to get an external microphone into your camera. When this has a 1/4, so a 1/4 inch image sensor, that's very small. In daylight, honestly, in daylight conditions, these cameras shoot phenomenal video. There's not much difference in quality when it comes to what you need for news or journalism. The difference is low light conditions. So the G70 has a bigger sensor and it shoots better at night, has a backlit CMOS so you can see better. The R80 struggles a little bit. Here's some footage from an accident I shot using the R80. It's okay. You know, if you had to get something and just show what's going on in a pinch, you know, this can work. This could work for newspapers, things like that. But at the end of the day, you know, low light conditions, not the best using the R80. It's okay. It might be acceptable to you. It's a $400 camera versus a $1,000 camera. It's a big difference. Sony makes some cameras as well, but they don't shoot MP4. That's the big difference. So it's all what is within your budget and your price range. So you're talking with this camera, you're talking a full setup with tripod and everything, maybe $1,400 total once you buy the good. The microphone's the most expensive part of the whole setup, minus the G70, but these microphones are kind of expensive. So everything that I'm showing you though, I'll put a link in the description. And then the last thing is with the G70, with the R80, is both the cameras output with a mini HDMI output. And so you may be saying to yourself, especially if you work in TV and you work in a newsroom, hey, I need SDI out. Like I need a camera with SDI out. Well, if you want a camera with SDI out that's built into it, you're probably going to pay at least $2,500. But the other option, which I use, is this thing right here. It's 40 bucks. This is an HDMI to SDI converter. And it's powered by USB. Now, I picked up a little mini power bank, 3,000 milliamp hours, which is the same size as this, and I can Velcro it right here. So it's a self-contained battery powered converter, so you don't need a wall outlet or anything like that. HDMI out into this, SDI out. 2 SDI outputs, multiple SDI outputs. One can go to like a pool feed, one can go to your monitor. This is an absolutely excellent converter, and they're about 40 bucks on Amazon. Link in the description if you want to pick one up. But this adds SDI output to your camera, and you don't have to pay thousands of dollars for a bigger camera to get SDI out. These work fantastic. So overall, these are 2 cameras that I've shown you. Basically, if you're going to use a budget camera for news or journalism, the thing you have to keep in mind is when you're shopping around, if you want something other than these 2 options, is you need to look at the size of the image sensor. In a perfect world, you want a 1 inch, right? 1 inch is going to be better than a 1/2 inch. But I think the 2.3 inches is the minimum that you're going to want. I do feel like, especially if you shoot at night, if you're covering crime scenes and covering stuff at night, then you're going to want something at least a 1/2 inch. If everything you do is in the daytime, this thing will work fantastic. I mean, shooting sports, everything else. The other thing too is I do shoot sports. I shoot baseball, football, everything with the G70, and it works fantastic. I would say that if you're not going to get the better tripod, then you want to invest in a zoom controller for the handle, because the only thing about this with the S4 tripod is if I shoot without the zoom controller and I'm touching the camera, you get some shaky video. It does have a great image stabilizer with this camera, a power one and standard, but when you're touching the camera, your video is going to shake more than if you just had your hand on the handle. And most of those zoom controllers, like the one I have, you can start, stop, record. You could zoom. Some of the newer ones are even wireless, and they would control focus and exposure. The one I have does not. The new ones do. I'll put a link in the description if you want to pick one of those up. Overall, there are options out there for you. Like I said, 1/2 inch or bigger sensor is the ideal. Unless you're only shooting in the daytime, then you can go with a smaller one. The other thing you want on every camera that you buy is you need to have that microphone input, whether it's a 3.5 millimeter or you want to go bigger with a camera that has built-in XLRs, but you got to have a way to connect an external microphone. Now, one thing I do want to caution you about, there are some cameras out there. I bought one for my son for Christmas, and they aren't brand name. They come with a little microphone that goes on a cold shoe. And actually, I'll pause right now. I'm going to go get it. I'm going to come back here. I'm going to show it to you. Okay, so this is a little camera I was telling you about. This little thing we got online. It has a cold shoe built in the top. In the back, it has a spot where you can connect. Let me open this up. It's going to turn on when I open it up. You're going to see. But it does have a powers through USB-C. Has a microphone jack in the back. And these look these look really cool. I mean, these look like good, good little cameras, but they're not. They're very cheap, and they do not have an optical zoom on them. It's all digital, and as you zoom in, you lose quality. So these are not what you want to get. You can pick one of these up with a little microphone that mounts on top for less than $100, and that may sound great. You will regret it if you buy one of these. Do not buy one of these things. They're very cheap. They don't have a brand name on them. This one just says Ultra HD Camcorder, just says Camcorder on the grip. I thought it was a good one for my son to start with, but I immediately told him we're not using this. And so I'm going to start training my 10-year-old son. I'm actually going to give him my R80 and let him start shooting with this so that he can learn how to professionally shoot. The last thing I want to talk about is, so we've talked about image sensor, we've talked about microphone input. The next thing that you need to look at is the optical zoom range for the camera. So the G70 has a 20-time optical zoom. The R80 has a 32-time optical zoom. Optical zoom means that it is using the lens to zoom in, okay? You need to ignore digital, the digital zoom range. What digital is, once it's extinguished the optical zoom length, it now gets into digital zoom. As it digitally zooms, you lose quality, okay? So this one has a 400-time and an 800-time digital zoom. But when you zoom that far, you can't tell what you're looking at. I mean, it's useless. I did notice the 400-time digital zoom. When I get past the 20, you can go a little bit further and still have a pretty clear picture, but you got to be careful with that. So same thing with this one. This one has a 32-time optical and a 400-time digital. And so same thing, digital you can use a little bit of, but then you start to lose quality. But 32-time optical zoom is a pretty long zoom for this. Although I'd say once you hit about 24 optical, the last little bit starts getting a little hazy and getting a little, it's not as crisp and sharp of a picture. So you have to be careful with that with the R80. So 3 things you need to look for when you buy a camera: image sensor, zoom, optical zoom range. And I would say don't get a camera that with less than 20-time optical zoom, because JVC makes a great little camera that's about the size of the G70, but it only has a 12-time optical zoom. You will regret that when you end up in a situation covering news when you need to zoom in on something and you don't have that optical image range. The other thing, keep in mind, as you zoom in, the camera sensor loses light. As it loses light, you start getting graininess, it starts getting darker. So, when you buy a smaller sensor, like a 1/4 inch like this, you get to the end of that zoom range and it's low light, it's a dark picture. So you have to keep that in mind. And then microphone input. So again, there's a lot of great options out there. My recommendation is the G70 as the absolute cheapest bottom of the line that you want to use for news and journalism. These would also double up as work for somebody who wants to do a documentary on a very, very small budget. These would work as well. The main thing, like I said, have a great microphone. I hope this has helped you guys out. If you guys have any questions, you can always hit the comments. You can go to my channel and you can find my email and email me. And please subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed. And if you love this content, please subscribe. Also like the video and then reach out if you have any questions, like I said before. And so next, one other thing real quick, the G70, I have a 1-hour video link in the description on everything about this camera. Sample footage, all the menus, everything you need to know about this camera is in a video that I've made. It's an hour long, so it's pretty long, but there are chapters you can skip around. I would suggest go checking that out. I also have a link in the description I did the same thing. I did a review of the R80. If you want to pick one of these up, you can check out that video as well. And yeah, I hope this has been useful and beneficial for all of you. And I'll see you next time. Take care.